Man's ex tells him to leave, leaves his mark before going. He thought she was the love of his life. He was convinced that she would be the mother of his children and the woman with whom she would grow old. So when it happened, the betrayal was too strong. He couldn't think straight for a few days. But after a while, there was no feeling of grief or sorrow inside him, just revenge. This story was shared on Reddit by the user UDJ Duke of Spook, to whom we shall refer to Daryl for clarity purposes. It's a story of love, betrayal, and vengeance. This woman was the most important thing in the world to Daryl, but she didn't hesitate to shatter his heart into pieces. Little did she know that the person who had once loved her would be the one to get the last laugh. When it happened, they had been dating for 2 years. They had met on a dating app, and although none of them thought they were looking for anything serious at that time, they both fell head over heels for each other. They had the same interests, the same values, the same sense of humor. And when it came to the bedroom, things were sizzling. They almost couldn't believe that they had found one another. The first few months passed fast and smoothly. From his past experiences as a lifelong bachelor, Daryl spent most of the time with a chip on his shoulder, wondering where the catch would be. But there didn't seem to be any. Laura seemed not only attractive and stimulating but also kind, compassionate, and supportive. One night, after they turned 1 year as a couple, Daryl left his guard down and asked her this question without expecting an answer. "Why did it take so long for me to come to you?" He just couldn't believe his luck. Little did he know that, unfortunately, nothing lasts forever and things were about to take a turn. From then on, their relationship started a slow but steady decline that would leave Daryl completely lost and bewildered about what happened. All of a sudden, Laura seemed to enter a deep depression. She barely ate or left the house, and she slept all day. Daryl thought of it as a test from destiny. After all his years of frivolous single life, fate was forcing him to learn what commitment and caring for another person were about. So he tried to do his best. But it didn't work as he expected. Laura got progressively distant, cold, snappy, and even rude. Daryl still thought of it as a trial of fire. Maybe that was what love was about, sticking together through the hard times and not giving up. Would it work out? It didn't. After a while, Laura started pointing out, in a freezingly cold manner, all the perceived flaws in Daryl. The cologne he had been using since they first met suddenly was too invasive, his cooking was always too fatty, his lack of ambition, his inability to open up and take things seriously. Daryl didn't know what to do. At first, he tried to change everything that Laura didn't like. But it was never enough. There always seemed to be a new problem. And one day, the news hit him like a truck. Laura had left the house for a 2-week-long hour trip. He didn't receive a text or call for days. He could feel something was wrong, so he waited, fearing for the worse. And suddenly, he received a call. With his heart in his mouth, he picked up the phone. It was her, just as expected. She said things were not working out between them, she had started dating the guy she told him not to worry about, and he would have to move out. After hanging up, his mind went blank. He was just numb, he couldn't think or feel anything at all. He remained in that state for about an hour. But when he came out of it, he didn't cry, he didn't grieve over the good memories or the lost time either. He could only think of one thing, revenge. And he had a plan for it. Daryl had a bunch of tiny battery-powered speakers that lasted forever and could be programmed to emit certain noises at a certain frequency. He set them up around the house. He left some behind the refrigerator, one hidden in the bathroom, another one behind the radiator, and so on. He chose what he wanted the speakers to play, he programmed them, packed his things, and left. And he wouldn't hear more about Laura until months later. Now you may be wondering what kind of noises did he program the speakers to emit. He chose the most creepy, unsettling stuff he could think of. In his own words. Children laughing, a dying breath as they called it, a whistle, scratching noises, some other ones I can't remember, but you get the idea. It was so unpredictable it was near impossible for someone to just figure it out. Months after the breakup, he got some news. It had been hard, but Daryl had moved on. He was living in a new apartment, he had taken up some of his old hobbies again, and he was spending time with his friends. He started smiling as Daryl was talking about the speakers, and by the time he was done, he had a huge grin on his face. Then he asked, "You put those in Laura's place, didn't you?" Daryl admitted it, and his friends started laughing hysterically. And after compassing himself again, he told Daryl a story. This is how Daryl recounted it. Turns out her new boyfriend had only lasted a few months and had left telling her that he couldn't handle whatever was going on with them and their mental states. Turns out they had both heard things for a while, and sometimes only one would hear them, which gave the illusion that something really messed with them was going on in their heads at different times. They couldn't figure it out, and eventually, he wanted out completely. He ended up believing he had been infected with some brain worm the government was putting in vaccines or something like that. So, in the end, Daryl got the last laugh. What do you think about his vengeance? Do you think it was a good way to move on, or was it petty and unnecessary?